I want to introduce our first insightful expert, and that's a friend and Arsenal fan who is based in Irvine in California, and he is called Zubin Malawi, and he works, he's right at the top of the tree at VaynerCommerce with Gary Vaynerchuck. Zubin, over to you, and love to hear your insights on how UK brands can expand over across the pond.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. I apologize. I prepared a presentation on why Arsenal is going to finish top four. I didn't realize that was a topic of conversation, so perhaps we should change the focus. Really great to be with everyone. Sophie, that was really insightful. Thanks for sharing that. I think that one of the things that we hear quite often, and just to give you a sense of, I'm going to share a quick presentation with you here. One of the things that we hear a lot, what we do is we help organizations of all sizes, primarily venture-backed startups and enterprise organizations, build sustainable direct-to-consumer brands. And so what we hear quite often from them, and I'll share this with you now, this is quite a lengthy presentation that we'll share with you afterwards, but I just wanted to speak to some of the topics because I think they'll be helpful for this audience. So one of the things that we hear quite often is that we want to be like those direct-to-consumer unicorn brands that we see all over the news, all over media, the Gymsharks of the world, the Everlanes, Warby Parkers, etc. And so in working with these types of clients, what we've recognized is that for those smaller organizations, whether they are just starting out or they are a company that's built on bricks and mortar and now wants to go direct to consumer, one of the most important things that ties all of these companies and all these brands together is that they value value. And no, that's not a typo. They actually value value. And what I mean by that is that they value multiple things. They get them to where they are. One, they value sustainable value, right? Or sustainable growth, rather. So instead of just looking at how am I going to sell net new customers, what is my acquisition cost, they think about LTV or lifetime value of their customers. So they're targeting individuals that are going to purchase their product not once, but many times. They're ensuring that the core unit economics and product offerings work. What I mean by this is oftentimes you see companies launching and they say, look, it doesn't matter that it costs us $10 to produce this thing. We'll sell it for $15. We'll spend $10 on customer acquisition. We'll lose $5 per product, and yet we'll grow at some point. Well, that doesn't work anymore. It could work for you, but the reality is many of those brands that I just mentioned right now, their fundamentals, their financial fundamentals work. And then finally, they focus on a cohesive product innovation plan. So they're not a one-trick pony. They're not we've created this one thing and this is what we stick to. They continually iterate on this S-curve of innovation so that they have one core product or multiple core products that they launch with. They will then go out and build new ones and new ones and new ones to take these products to their consumers. The other thing that's really important is that they value internal incentive alignment. So in many organizations, what you notice is that the CEO or the founder has a completely different set of alignment or goals than somebody in marketing. Well, unless everybody is aligned across the board and company financials, company incentives, company growth are clear to everyone in that company, it's not going to be very easy for that person who's running your Facebook ads to understand why they're doing what they're doing, because then they'll myopically just be focused on, oh, I want to return on ad spend on advertising versus understanding the overall growth of the company. The other thing that's really important is employees are empowered to work autonomously. So once you have incentives aligned, once you know what each department is going to contribute to the overarching company, then you can work autonomously. And this is really critical at a small stage because obviously you can't be, as a founder, as somebody who's focused on leading the organization, you can't be involved in everything. You need to allow them to run in their lanes and run fast in their lanes. Those brands that we talked about right now, the Gymsharks of the world, they're not micromanaging everybody. They're hiring the right people even from the onset and allowing them to run. And if they fall, they fall, but they're running at a certain pace. And then finally, that same incentivization structure is across their vendors as well. So whether they're vendors that they're buying product from or vendors that they're working with in terms of agency, they're aligned as well. They understand, more importantly, the top line, bottom line goals of that company, and so they can actually help them get there as well. The other thing that's incredibly important is they value creating consumer value. So when we're thinking about expanding to the US, when we're thinking about expansion, you know why in a certain geographical area, you know why, for example, in the UK, folks love your product. You got to lean into that. And you have to understand at the end of the day that there are probably four different categories of value that your product can elicit in someone: social impact, life changing, emotional, or functional. Now, social impact is self transcendence. Many products will never achieve that. Many products will never achieve life changing value of providing hope and motivation and affiliation, belong. But most products will elicit some sort of emotional reaction. So, be it nostalgic, be it wellness, and functional. Certainly, most products have a functional value. Understanding that will allow you to ensure that those who you're targeting in the US understand the value that they're getting, and subsequently you target those that get the most value, because it really matters. And why does it matter? Because recently Harvard and Bain did a study that companies with an 8 out of 10 on 4 or more of those values that we mentioned right now have a 3 times net promoter score, meaning that more people are likely to refer them to other people, i.e. organic growth, than other brands, and they have 4x revenue growth than the other brands. So it's really important to lean into value. It's not just a matter of some altruistic thing of, oh, we want to make sure people benefit from our product. They absolutely have to. They have to know they benefit, and you have to communicate that to them, and that's actually going to help you with your customer growth. The other thing is they value customers uniquely. When you're entering a market like the US, you may have a very niche product in the UK, and it may only be applicable in one part of the country or one demographic, where within the US, you will likely have 10 times as many, 5 times as many of those folks. But you also have primary audiences, you have secondary, tertiary, etc. It's really important to understand who you're targeting, and then start to tier these customers. First and foremost, target the ones that are your primary base. Target the ones that are the most similar to who you're currently selling to right now. From there, start to tier them by LTV, because that will give you a sense of how much effort and impact to put against them. If you just blanket put money towards everybody, those who are getting high amounts of value, those who are getting low amounts of value, you're not going to be able to grow your company as fast. The other thing that's important is to communicate value to each tier uniquely. As I was mentioning earlier, there might be one group that gets nostalgic value from your product and another one that gets functional value. Well, it's important to understand that the ones that get nostalgic value, you want to make sure that message resonates with them, and you're consistently sharing that message of nostalgia with that group versus the functional message with the other one. And then finally, you got to constantly test this. Just because you make one assumption to begin with doesn't mean that it's actually the assumption that's going to hold. So continually test these assumptions to figure out what combination of messaging resonates the most with these audiences, that really matches the value set that they get, such that they don't just buy from you once, they buy from you multiple times, and they tell others as well. They also value sales channels differently. So when we think about selling on your own site versus an Amazon versus another retailer, those are very distinct experiences, and it's really important to understand that, and understand that you may have to have a different subset of products in the UK than in the US, and within the US on your .com versus Amazon versus other locations. So finally, I know we're limited on time, but we'll share this with you afterwards. How do you achieve sustainable growth? 5 quick tips on this. 1, build your business for sustainable growth from the get-go. Think about the financials that achieve sustainable growth, and those financials aren't running on a loss on a regular basis. Companies, from the existence of companies that have done well, are profitable. Companies that have value to external partners are profitable. Yes, there are exceptions to that, but at the end of the day, if you are focused on financial viability and profitability from within 1 year, I'm not talking about from day one, but within 1 year, you're starting out right. Secondly, align those incentives that you have across your entire organization, internally and externally. There's this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? There's this approach in small businesses. I ran a small business that got acquired. I hesitated to share financials with my team because I thought, well, if they know the financials, they're going to want to make more, this, that, the other. The reality is that sharing those financials is far more beneficial to those folks in charge than not. You get everybody aligned on the same set of goals. You can incentivize them on growth, and they understand that just because you do X in revenue doesn't mean you're taking X home. You're taking a very, very small portion of that home, and they can help you grow that. Third, deliver meaningful value to customers and consumers. Understand the value set of why your products and services are doing well in the UK, who's buying from you, why are they buying from you right now, why are they coming back, why are they referring you. Take that, capture it, put it in a bottle, ship it over to the US, and make sure that it's shared. Treat consumers uniquely. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important to understand that each consumer set is looking for a different thing, perhaps, and there are different values that align with what they're achieving from your products. And so make sure that's messaged appropriately. And finally, be intentional with each sales channel. Every sales channel is not the same. To get somebody to your .com takes a significantly more amount of effort than going to an Amazon or another online retailer. So understand what you're going to offer them there. Surprise and delight, different bundling, different flavors, different product set than you do elsewhere to encourage them to come there. I hope that was helpful. I wish you the best of luck on your journey. If there's anything we can help you with, please let us know, and I'll be here to answer your questions.
Zubin, thank you very much for some really remarkable insights there. Before we move on to the next guest, I just want to ask you, obviously we've seen a lot of change in the last 18 months. Where, if you were going to just put a direction going forward, where would you see the most change and impact having sort of in the next 6 months? Do you see a particular additional pattern emerging? What would be your kind of predictive thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. I think that it's obvious to all of us that those products that were kind of at-home products have done well, whether they were fitness products, whether they were office, furniture, things of that nature. I think as we were starting to emerge and going back into the workplace, there are new categories, nascent categories that haven't even been there before, that are perhaps the ones that are going to be the most impactful, the ones that are going to enable the type of hybrid behavior that we're expecting. I think that's a really exciting place to look at. The other thing that I think that many of you may have heard of or have not heard of are NFTs and the concept of non-fungible tokens, cryptocurrency, etc. It's starting to become more mainstream. Brands are starting to adopt them and use them as a means to, many brands are starting to think about this. No one's actually done this yet, but starting to think about their top tier clients or their collections from a brand standpoint, and only give, for example, folks that own their NFT access to that, or use those NFTs for access. And I think it's a really, really important thing to look at, regardless of your size and scale. It's like saying in 1999, social media is going to take over and people are going to be able to sell their products on social media. And everybody's thinking, well, that's not going to happen. The same sort of thing is going to happen. It might be a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year time horizon, but I highly recommend everybody look into it and understand what they can do beyond the JPEG.